is too long and life is too short. It's too long to not be doing and living how you want to live, and it's too short to not live how you want to live. People feel that they're so locked in to their decisions. I've studied this degree, so I have to do that career. I've married this person, so I have to stay with them for the rest of my life, even though we hate each other. Like, you know what? Like, you don't have to do that. You can take the rules away. And it's been very interesting for me to watch people's discomfort in the way that I live.
Hello everyone, how are you? This is Ali Whitecheck from Square One, and welcome to another episode of Designing Your Life and Career YouTube channel, designed with you and for you to live a meaningful and fulfilled life. I must admit, it's been a while since I put together an episode, and I'm very excited to finally be sharing something with you guys. And I couldn't think of a better episode to release to you all than from a person that I deeply admire, and someone who, like me, is an entrepreneur, and someone that I look up to and inspire to be a lot of the things she is. And with you all, I would love to introduce you to Sel Watts. Sel Watts is known for her success building an Australian-born consultancy firm, helping small to medium businesses and fast-growing startups create high-performance teams from the top down. Her expertise is dealing with founders and entrepreneurs because she is one. And now she has taken her expertise to New York City to ramp up her knowledge sharing. She lives in New York with her 3 sons, and she's constantly learning about resilience, gratitude, never settling, and striving for a dream with everything that you can have. I am so very excited to bring you the legendary Sel Watts to the show today. Sel has been someone that I've been following for quite a few years now, probably since the moment I started my entrepreneurial journey, especially because she was based in Queensland not long ago and took the leap of faith to move to New York to start basically the new transition for her business, Wattsnext Group. And I've been admiring her journey for so very long, for really taking the experimentation and prototyping of her life to a new level. So Sel, welcome to the show today.
Oh, thank you, gorgeous. I'm so privileged and humbled that you've asked to talk to me today. I love it.
Oh my God. I was so excited. I remember thinking I need to bring a few good humans that have figured out a way to experiment with their life, and I couldn't think of a better person than you. So there you go.
Yes, experimenting with my life. That is a very good way of describing how I live, actually.
Oh my God. So tell me, you are in New York right now. It's the 12th of June when we're recording this. How are you going in the midst of, I guess, COVID-19 and Black Lives Matter? It's a lot happening where you are.
Yeah, it's, Ali, it's a lot. It's been, particularly, I think, last week with Black Lives Matter, it became very heavy. The city feels, it's really sad. The city feels like it's in a lot of pain right now. And it's been, as far as the pandemic goes, it's just been a lot. Like we've been in lockdown for a really long time. And here in New York, it's serious lockdown. There's been, everything got shut, the schools got closed. We can't go anywhere without a mask. Nothing's still open, and it'll end up being, so I don't know, the schools closed about 10 weeks ago. They won't go back till September. And the interesting thing here too is that people live in New York City to live in the city. No, you don't come here to live in a tiny apartment. Like in Australia, we spend so much time of our lives at home because our homes are big. We have pools or backyards or, cul-de-sacs, and, we entertain at home, and we really, our homes are a big part of our lives. Whereas in New York, you really live in the city, and home is for, going to sleep. And so it's such a change in lifestyle for everyone here, because it's not what this place is all about, and it's about its vibe and its noise and the hecticness of it. And suddenly it just went quiet, and and it's been like that for a really long time. But So, and I'd only been, I moved my boys over in January. They'd only been in school for I don't know, maybe a month. And I had just started to get them settled and go, right, now I can sort of get into a routine. And this happened. It's just been.
Yeah. And I can imagine, because your boys were, I remember looking at your Instagram when you were welcoming them at the airport with a sign, and that was the happiest moment. I remember having tears in my eyes going, this is awesome, because I knew as a mother, what would that have felt like? And then I was like, February, March, and I was like, oh goodness, Sel with 3 kids in an apartment in New York, homeschooling, running a business. How are you going? This is impossible to do, all of it.
And the thing is, I spent 2 years trying to get them here, like commuting between Australia and New York, living more here than there and being away from them, and this whole massive sacrifice and process to get them here. And then we got here and then this happened, and it was just like, what? But you know what? At the same time, what an incredible experience, because we have just gone, we are in the epicenter, and New York is such an inspiring place. And the way that the New Yorkers have responded, we have this saying of New York tough, and everyone's come together. And, this city has been absolutely wounded, but it will come back even stronger. It's going to take time. I mean, we're a long way from any sort of normality, but being here and the boys being able to experience firsthand being in the epicenter of such a global pandemic, it's been, just such an incredible learning experience. And then with Black Lives Matter, for them, like, they just haven't, it's a different world over here. The pain, the racism and the pain is just everywhere. And for them to experience that firsthand and be here throughout that, like, what amazing life lessons. And I've had people say to me, so many people say, come home, why haven't you come home? How can you stay there? It's unsafe. And what are you doing to your kids? And blah, 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 blah. All the time, you get this constant judgment and people, putting their choices on you, like, you should. And at no point have we felt unsafe or at risk or scared. Not one point. I'm sure the media is way worse in Australia about New York than, what we are at all are experiencing. Like, I'll wake up in the morning and I'll have all these messages and I'm thinking, 60 Minutes must have done something in New York last night. I'll get all these things and I'll think, look out the window and go, no, it's actually, everything's fine. But so what they, how we have grown in this time, and the personal challenge of, as a family, having to readjust and then readjust again, and we can't get back to Australia and they can't see their dad, and like, it's heavy stuff. And I'm incredibly proud of how we have handled it, like, and how we are handling it. And I certainly have my bad days where I find it really hard, but generally, I'm really proud of to give them the experience and how we're managing it. It's pretty full on. Yeah.
I want to talk about a little bit about your story, and I want you to bring me on that journey and bring us on the journey, because I think not everyone has the guts to do what you did. And not everybody plays with fear the way you play with fear. And before we started this conversation, you talk about failure and how failure isn't a word in your dictionary. And ultimately, I want to understand, what has that journey been like for you, and what then made you move to New York? What was that calling? What was that live experience or next chapter for Sel?
Yeah. Okay, so there's a lot of elements to that. So I'll try to be as clear as I can in answering. So when I started my first business, Wattsnext, I was 30 years of age, so old, if you like, in the terms of starting a business. And at that time, it was 2007, and I had absolutely nothing, nothing going for me to be able to start a business. It was I had just moved to Queensland from Adelaide. I had no networks. I didn't know anyone. I had a 3-month-old baby. I didn't have any family around me, so they didn't have that support. I dropped out of university 3 times. I have no qualifications. I just can't learn that traditional way. And I tried, but, it just wasn't for me. And eventually I went, you know what, I just got to do it my way. So no qualifications, I had no business experience, hadn't grown up in family business. And I'd only really been in a career of human resources for a relatively short time. And it was the start of the global financial crisis. So I had nothing going for me to start a business. And if I had gone to some business coach or someone and said, I want to start this business, I'm going to change the world, this is what I want to do, they would have said, you're crazy. Like, there's just no way that you can do this. But I didn't go and speak to anyone. There was no social media to be comparing myself to anyone or anything like that. So I had this vision that I'd worked in an industry for a little while that I really felt had enormous potential, and I was totally disgruntled with it. I thought the HR industry was just really poorly done, and I really didn't like it, and I wanted to change that. And so I decided to start this business because I was really passionate about small to medium businesses. I believe that small to medium business owners are the ones that change the world. And I was like, I want to go in and I want to work with small to medium businesses on their people, but from a commercial perspective, not a HR, not a police or counsellor. Like, how do we get people to perform? And how do we actually make businesses grow through their people? And so I decided to start this business. And as I said, I had nothing going for me, but I had this vision that I was going to do this. And my naivety of my weaknesses, if you like, was my biggest gift, because I did not even register that I didn't have all those things. In fact, all the things I listed, I did not even consider until maybe 5 years down the track when I was asked to do a talk. And I thought, I'll sit down and reflect on my journey, and thought, whoa, like, I can't believe, like, actually I really had nothing going for me. But I didn't think about it at the time. I just thought, I'm passionate about this thing and the world's my oyster, and I'll put my blinkers on and I'll just go ahead. And throughout that journey, I had so many knockers. Like, I've got 3 boys, as we've mentioned. So every time I feel pregnant, people would say, oh, you're closing the business now, or I guess that's the end of the business. And no believed in me, and I just constantly had people sort of, mocking my dream, and I just, I just didn't believe them. And throughout the last 13 years, the business has gone through so many times, huge growth, and I've gone from nothing to, being able to have and do what I want to do, to then everything, to having to rebuild. There's so many different experiences, and throughout that time, I've had people along the way that have, done all sorts of things of lack of belief, and I have just blocked it out. And one of the things that I have, when we talk, and I think this is really interesting, about failure, but probably more so generally around my life, is that I sort of, the reason I haven't ever considered failure, and I know it's such a massive thing for people, and and then we hear all this stuff about failure's good and all of that sort of stuff. I don't even, to me, my life is about having experiences and trying things and living in seasons. So I think people are scared to start something because if it doesn't work, then, what will people say? And if it doesn't work, I will have lost time, or I would have lost money. And I just don't see it that way. I see it like, I've got this life to live, and I'm going to do things that I want to do at the time. And if at any point I don't want to do it anymore, I just won't do it anymore. So, for example, I was interviewed a couple of years ago, and the interviewer said to me, oh, tell us about when you started at your Sydney office and it failed. And I was like, my Sydney office failed? My Sydney office didn't fail. I really wanted to open a Sydney office. I did it. And then once I did it, I was like, I don't like this. Like, I have to travel all the time. The person I put in charge has got personal issues. isn't really capable. I would have to do more. Yeah, you know what? I don't really want to do this anymore. And I didn't do it anymore. And I didn't have an attachment to that, you know, that was a failure. I went ahead with something I wanted to try and do. And by doing it, I had an experience which led me to not want to do it anymore. So what? Like, I'm so glad I did that. But I was really curious around the fact how it was positioned as, because I didn't then, I don't know what I was meant to do after I opened and did that for however many years, because I chose not to do that anymore, I was seen as it had failed. And I think this is where the fear comes from, that we can't change our mind. We're locked in, you know, we have to live this certain way. And I just don't believe that. I think that we change, and the more that we do things, the more experiences we have, the more people we meet, the more exposure we'll have to new ideas, which will change our wants and needs. And so what I want to do right now compared to what I want to do in 3 years' time, who knows? You know, like it's always evolving. So I look at my life and I think about, this is how I think about my life. I think at the end of it all, I picture myself at the end of my life where, and I have this very Aussie picture in my head of sitting on the veranda, you know, of a homestead in a rocking chair with all my great grandchildren all sitting around my feet. And they say to me, great grandma Sel, tell us about your life. And I say, well, have I got a story for you? And I think, wouldn't that be amazing to have this incredible story to of like, and then I went to New York and let me tell you about that. And then I did this. And oh, what about that business I started that was, what about that huge success? I want to have a life that's filled with experiences, and that will be good and bad and ugly and amazing and scary, but what a life. And so when you look at it, well, for me, when I look at it that way, where's the failure? Like where's the room for attaching failure to any of that? There's no failure in that. It's just living and, you know, expanding who I am to my biggest potential and being free to change my mind and do whatever I feel as I grow as a woman through my life. And so that's what I like people to look at their lives differently, to take away things like failure and what people think, so that they are free to do what they want to do. Because if people just did what they wanted to do and you know, change their jobs or change their relationships or whatever, got rid of friends that don't, you know, aren't good for them, whatever it may be, they'll be happier. And if we're happier, the world's got to get better, surely, you know. As simple as and as complex as that, I suppose.
No, that's awesome. I'm just going, wow, this is amazing. I love what you said around living your life in seasons, and it's a really interesting way to put it, because so I love a couple of things of your story. That is one, you know, I think people do not know how to live in seasons. I think people, you know, when you think of people living in a very cold country, they dress for the season. You know, if it's cold, they dress accordingly. If it's warm, you know, they dress accordingly. And I think we tend to live in this numbness of living the seasons the same way. It doesn't matter if it's 40 degrees outside and it's boiling hot, you must still be wearing that wool coat and you're like sweating your ass off. But we don't pay attention. We're like, why am I sweating? Why am I sweating this freaking much, right? And I think it comes to that awareness. You know, it really comes, for me, one of the things that I love about your stories that you touch on, you know, you will be sitting on the beautiful house in Queensland, in Australia, in a veranda with your grandchildren going, Grandma, tell me about your life. And that moment when you're able to visualize that, is so powerful, because you, in a way, the way I see it, and this is something that we do, we talk about building your bold vision and looking at your life in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now and going, where are you going to be at exactly
What is this? What surrounds you? What are the smells? Who are going to be the key people in your life? You know, what exercises you're going to be doing that morning? What are you going to have for breakfast? What TV show you're going to turn on? And we want people to understand that the moment you're able to almost fast forward in time and have that realization on how you see yourself, 50, 60, 20 years from now, is really what's going to give you the awareness to really figure out, well, things got to change. Like I'm not living up to that. I want to be telling my grandchildren about all the awesome stories of me moving to New York and me doing all these crazy things in the middle of COVID-19 with my kids. And yeah, that's really powerful.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's no rules, and so we have the freedom to change our minds and do different things. So I'm not the woman that I was 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, and I won't be the same in 5 years' time because I'm doing too many things that expand my views, And so when you get more education or more exposure to things, you're like, whoa, I never looked at it that way. I need to explore that, or I don't know, no longer think that anymore. Like I went through a stage where I was traveling when the businesses were expanding around Australia, and I was traveling every single week for 2 years, and I loved it. And it was just something that was really great. And then I didn't love it anymore, and I didn't want to do it anymore. And that was great. Like I did it, and it was a great time, and I really enjoyed that. It was really cool. And then I didn't want to do it, and so I didn't do it anymore. Like people feel that they're so locked in to their decisions. I've studied this degree, so I have to do that career. I've married this person, so I have to stay with them for the rest of my life, even though we hate each other. We've decided that we're going to live here because my parents say they want us nearby, so that's what we'll do, even though we hate it. Like, you know what? Like, you don't have to do that. You can take the rules away. And it's been very interesting for me to watch people's discomfort in the way that I live. And because and I have no discomfort about how anyone else lives. Like, it doesn't matter to me. But people have been very judgmental and uncomfortable with this. And I had a guy that I was mentoring who was way more successful than me, if you want to look at like businesses and whatever. But he said to me in one of our sessions, so this was a game changer for me, actually. He said to me, how do you do what you want to do? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, how are you okay to just do what you want to do, live how you want to live? And I was like, well, this is heavy, there are so many people that truly believe that they shouldn't live how they want to live, shouldn't do the things that they want to do, because we can't possibly be nice to ourselves, and we can't possibly put ourselves and our dreams before others. But we're more than happy to quote, put our own oxygen mask on first before we help others. We all understand it, but how many of us are actually living it? And the biggest, and I think for any listeners who have children are a wonderful excuse not to live your dreams. Like, they are the best excuse. Like, I can't do that because my kids. And you know what? That's utter bullshit. Like, really, if you look at yourself in the mirror, think, am I using them as my reason because I'm too scared to do what I want to do? Because you can always pull on them as your excuse. But for me, the way that I worked out how to live my life and how I wanted to live, and being comfortable with the unconventional way that I live, is that I thought, okay, if I could only give my children one piece of advice, what would it be? And I was like, that's, one piece of advice in the whole life. Like, what would that be? That's a pretty full-on question. And I thought, you know what, more than anything, I want them to chase their dreams. I want them to, like, if one of them wants to be a rock star, I don't want to say, yeah, go and do that, but also get a law degree just in case. I want them to go for it and trust that if it doesn't work out, that they'll be okay. That they don't need a safety net, to go all in. And I thought, you know what? Who am I to give them that advice if I'm not prepared to live that? If that's what I truly want for them, clearly that's what I truly want for myself, because the advice we give our children is really how we want to be. And I thought, I'm no one to tell them to go and live their dreams and then be too scared to live mine. I'm no one to tell them what to do, but I'm everyone to show them. And so when I realized what I wanted the advice to be, I went, okay, now I know what I need to do. I need to give them a front row seat in dream chasing and all these challenge and sacrifice that comes with that. And they have come through that journey understanding that, you know, you've got to live all out, because life is too long and life is too short. It's too long to not be doing and living how you want to live, and it's too short to not live how you want to live. And so thinking about what is the advice you give your kids, and are you telling them to do something and getting them to live a life that you are too scared to live? Because there's no leadership in that.
Yeah. So, and I agree. I think I think we since growing up, we are taught that, you know, you got to go to school, and this is what happened to me. You know, I had to go to school. I did great at school. I was a great student. My parents wanted me to go to university. I, of course, wanted myself to go to university, because I thought, oh, this is going to be the path for me to graduate, be the first person in my family, my brother and I, to graduate from university. So that was a big deal. Then, you know, of course, I had to go for those big corporate jobs, you know, for those big brands, and be someone, you know, to really bring cash to my family and money, because that was back in the day still a big thing, you know, be successful, to earn money, to do something. Success and money were together. And so that was my life. You know, I was told to get married and have babies, and I did that. I got married, had babies. I still have them, still married. But one of the things that I learned is that this wasn't my life. This wasn't the life I was meant to be living. And probably it all kind of revealed after I had the kids, and I said, this is bullshit. I don't like my life. I do not like living in a world in which I am not me. I went into every role and I tried to shape it to be me, and it never worked, because it was Ali trying to be Ali in a place that Ali was not able to be Ali. And so, and that fear of leaving was real, you know, that fear of what if things don't work out was real, and it's still real in many ways. And I admire your sense of almost like that switch on and off, that you're like, I have no fear, like I just do it, I just move on and I just do it, I make it happen. If it doesn't work and I don't feel like doing it anymore, I don't do it anymore. And I think people struggle with that, because we're told you got to do these things for the rest of your life, you got to go to university, you got to have this corporate life, and you got to earn this much money, and you got to get married and all those things. And then people go, this isn't me. So what can you, and there is probably a lot in it, but if people were to figure out a new path for their lives, and I think during COVID-19, a lot of people realize that a lot needs to change.
Yeah.
And whether it's slowing down, and that's something that, you know, happened to me. I realized that I just live at such a fast pace, working 70 hours a week, and I'm burning out. I am burning out. And I'm like, okay, well, how do I slow down? Or people going, you know what? Those colleagues in my office, I hate them and I don't want to go back, you know? So what can you say to people who are like, okay, let's figure this out. Let me try something. What can you think they can do? Could be a little bit of a path for them to try and experiment and test stuff in their life without feeling that they're a failure, without feeling that that is it, and there isn't a go back for them.
And like, you know, I mean, like, it's hard because I have no aversion to risk. So I'm very careful when I give advice like this or share, because I know that that I am extreme in that way, and that's very stressful for the people around me. Not so much for me, because I never had anything when I grew up. I didn't have a very good childhood, and I never had anything. So I've always sort of gone, well, you know, I can just, you know, if I lose everything or this is a disaster and like I I come here and I lose everything. I just can start again. Like I believe in myself that I can somehow make it work. Like I just have that belief. So therefore I'm really comfortable taking risks, but I'm not very considerate of the people close to me that are having to go along that very risky ride. And I've worked with the coaches on that. But what I was going to say was that I use a really simple technique and I use this with the kids all the time and myself. It's like, what's the worst that could happen? It's just a really simple question of what is the worst, like the absolute worst that could happen? What, like you might not drive your fancy car, you might have to, downsize your house, or you might have to move back with your parents, or I don't know, like what is the worst that can happen? And if you look at that, it's often really not that bad. And also the other thing is the likelihood of that happening is so low, right? It's so low. So then when you look at this is the worst that could happen, it's not actually that bad. I don't want it to happen, but it's not that bad. And it's really unlikely that will happen. It takes a lot of the pressure off. But the other thing is that most people are constrained with the ego element and of what people will think, and the thing is that no one actually cares, right? So I have heaps of judgment come my way, and I know that judgment just comes from people that whatever I'm doing is pushing their buttons about whatever's going on with them. So people that criticize me as a parent, I've got some stuff going on where they're feeling insecure about how they're parenting right now. It's got nothing to do with me, because at the same time I get asked to give advice on parenting, which I'm like, seriously, I just can't believe I even get asked that. But I know that the judgment and any nastiness is their stuff, and it's whatever they're going through at the time. It's got nothing to do with me. So when you can, and it doesn't mean it doesn't hurt, and it doesn't mean I don't get furious about it, and I hate this, constant feeling of being misunderstood. But, when you can get rid of that worrying about what others are going to think of you leaving that corporate job, or leaving your husband, or everyone downsizing and not having the fancy car so you can start your business. People admire, they might not necessarily like you, but they admire people. I find that people admire you when you are doing your thing and you're being you. They might not like it. They might be like, I don't really like her, but I love that she is her. You know how there's people where you go, I don't really like them, but I just love that they're so them, and they're just doing what they want to do, and they don't care, and they're going for it. You have enormous respect for that, right? And you learn from those people. So I think, if you think about, well, why aren't I making the move? Like, why aren't you? Like, what are you scared of? What's the worst that can happen? Who are you worried about what they think? Can you control it? No, you can't. And what if you did it? And this is the thing for me there were many times in the first 5 years of me growing my business where I'd be in the fetal position on the bathroom floor saying, I just can't do this anymore. But there was always this curiosity of, what if I did? What would it look like? So it's like, I can't go, like coming to New York was just a head fuck. It was nearly impossible. The amount of obstacles that I came up against, and still do, but like to get here with the kids and just, so hard. And, so many times people be like, you know what, like you tried, you tried. And I'd be like, but what if I got them there? Like, imagine if I did. I just need to know. what it looks like. If I get them there and it sucks and I can't make it work and it just is impossible, we can go, but I just need to see it with my own eyes. I can't have someone else tell me what it would have been like, or that I can't do it. I need to know myself for certain that I can't do it. I have to make that decision. I can't do this, not have someone else make that decision for me. And so these are the little things, but they're big things that I say to myself about, but what if? Like, what if you left that big corporate job and you started your own business? Like, imagine what that would be. I need to know, like, have the experience. It's a life journey, and it's meant to be lived, experience it, and like see what living is all about. Not living this every day, you know, the same as the Joneses. Like that. Like, how's that fulfilling? It's just not.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a very sad way of living life, and I think there is probably a lot of discomfort that a lot of people live with on a daily basis, and one day, maybe when it's a little bit too late, they're going to look back on that veranda and they're going to get asked, Grandma, what did you do all your life? And they won't have a story to tell.
Exactly.
So I think is a story to tell. Now, I want to wrap up with, this has been incredible. And I tell you, I have personally, I think that you are like that guy, you know, that guy from the guy that does rock climbing without ropes. Have you seen that documentary on Netflix?
No,
So,
I haven't.
Oh my God, I think it's called Climbing Solo or Free Solo. He's incredible. I'll send you a link. Anyway, this guy climbs mountains without ropes and he's like a legend. But he actually had his brain tested, because there's a part of your brain, and you might know this, which is like the very primitive part of your brain where you go different sections. One of them is the amygdala. And the amygdala is actually what tells you fear is a thing. So that's what really regulates your emotions. Like, for example, I was at an acupuncture appointment this morning, and a needle was going to go within my skin, and I could see it, and my body was reacting, and I was like, hey, that's the amygdala going, because I already kind of talked to my amygdala and go, is what it warns me. And this guy, which I think is like you, his amygdala couldn't pick up fear, couldn't pick up risk. So he climbs up this mountain because his brain is actually able to not recognize fear. So he's like, I'm just going to do it. Like, I like it. I'm going to do it. So I reckon you're a little bit like him.
Well, do you know, it's interesting because I've done a few things, like I bungeed off I think the second highest bungee in the world, and also jumped out of a plane. But the reason I did it was for a pattern interrupt, because I was feeling, so with the second one, which was jumping out of the plane, I had a really bad year in business where I thought that I nearly lost everything, and it was really, really traumatic. And I found that I'd lost my edge. I could feel that I was feeling like fearful, and I wasn't forging ahead the way that I naturally would. And I sort of was like, oh, this is just... And so I rang my friend. I said, I need a physical pattern interrupt. I think I need to jump out of a plane. And I hate that stuff. Like, I hate extreme sports. And he was like, okay, well, I'm going to pick you up tomorrow and you're going to go and do it. And I didn't tell the family or anything. And I was just like, oh my God. Anyway, it was so interesting because... and this was a bit the same with the bungee. Like, I had all this stuff going on that I couldn't get rid of. So I wrote it all down. And when I did the leap off this cage, and it was like an 8-second free fall, I let go of the piece of paper and to try. So I do it for for a mental shift, a physical thing for a mental shift. Anyway, when I did the plane jump, my friend, who's an entrepreneur, sat with me prior and talked me through, but basically what was going on in my business and what was going on in my world. And I was talking to him about how I'm much better in chaos. And when things are calm in my world, I tend to disrupt them. And so if things are going well in the business, it's like I come in and I break everything. And so when this COVID thing happened and everything's like, whoa, I sort of went into like, right, okay, there's a crisis, I know what to do. Anyway, I jumped out of the plane, and the free fall bit I was good in. But when the parachute came out and we drifted down, I lost it. I was like, get me down, we need to get down. And the guy's like, that's what we're doing. Yeah, it just takes a little bit of time. And I was like, oh, and I just could not stand it. Anyway, so I said to my friend afterwards, like, oh my God, like I could not handle that bit, which is what everyone else usually likes. And he said, that's so interesting. When you were in the free fall, the chaotic, like no control, was when you felt most calm. And then when you're in the controlled area, you were like, could not cope. And he's like, that's exactly what you do in business. And so it was really interesting to, like, I do things like that to try and work out how I'm working in my life. Anyway, I've gone completely off track, but just
this is so interesting. I can see that, and I'm very scared of being in deep ocean, and that's been a huge fear of mine forever since I was a little girl. And I wrote down on because I turned 40 this year, and of course COVID happened, so I couldn't do this scuba diving experience, but it's one of the things, and I would love to try that because I actually haven't ever tried a extreme physical activity to kind of like switch my mindset and go, what the F, Ali, like wake up. That's incredible.
Use it as a, so rather than use it as a, I'm going to get rid of my fear of deep sea, because I never attached the bungee or the skydive to bungee and skydiving or the fear of jumping out of things or whatever. It was always about something completely separate. So it was about, I've got all this stuff that I can't let go of. Okay, I need to do a physical thing to let go of. I'm losing my edge around my fear. I'm feeling fearful and I'm losing my edge. So I need to put myself in a situation where I'm shot. And the other thing is that we were driving along a few weeks before I did the plane jump, and all these skydivers were coming down. We're in the car with the kids, and I said, and I wrote a blog about this. I looked up and I went, oh, I could never do that. And I was like, what? I never say that. Like, I've never said I could never do that. And I was like, where did that come from? And I'm like, hang on a minute. And it just kept sitting there going, I've never said I could never do that of anything. I've never thought that. And it's a bit like the failure thing. Like when this COVID thing happened and I was on the phone, someone really upset going, I'm failing. And then I was like, whoa, hang on a minute. I've never used that word. What's going on here? So then I use these things and go, right, I need to do something to process this because there's something that's, that I'm clearly, not working through very well and is going to take away what's unique about me and makes me good at what I do. Like I don't want to lose those things. And so then I do the work, like jumping out of a plane or whatever, to get that back.
Love that. I love how you're doing the work. Like I must admit, I'm going to steal that idea and I will decide what I do first, bungee jump or, jump over a plane or something really scary. Rock climbing actually makes my hands, every time I watch a documentary on rock climbing, my hands are really getting very sweaty. And this is like me on my sofa watching a freaking documentary on Netflix, right? And so I'm like, what's wrong with me? So that might be the thing. Sel, it's been so wonderful. Before I wrap up, I've got a couple of, they're very quick questions. So you're supposed to tell me the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay.
And then that's it. So first thing I want to ask, wisdom or power? Which one would you choose? Wisdom or power?
Wisdom, hands down.
Love or curiosity?
Curiosity.
What is your favorite book? Or a favorite book?
Oh, my favorite book is How Far You, it's a Dr. Seuss book called How Far You Will Go.
Yes, I think I know. Yeah. I'm happy to put it in the show.
Yes, sorry, I've got yes, Dr.
It's
Seuss.
very hard. Actually, you did pretty good because people ask me, it's like, I don't know, I can't remember. What are the 3 items that are always in your handbag?
Oh, lip gloss.
Yes.
AirPods. Lip gloss, AirPods, and like bronzer.
Oh, yes, I know. It does the trick. Look.
Yeah, like it doesn't matter if you've got nothing else on. If you can put bronzer on, it just fixes everything.
I know. Oh, how awesome. Sel, thank you so much for spending this time with me. And it's been so wonderful chatting. Now, if people want to find out more about you, your businesses, where can people find you?
So the best place to go is Instagram, Sel_Watts, and then it has my link tree to everything that I'm doing. So yeah, that's a good place that goes everywhere.
Perfect. Thank you. We'll definitely make sure that we have the link to your Instagram on the show notes. And thank you so much for spending this hour with me. It's been fantastic.
Oh, thank you for having me. I hope that, and to your audience, like, I hope this has been helpful, and please reach out if anyone has any questions or want to talk about stuff. I'm more than happy to.
Cool. Perfect. Thank you so much for that, Alpha. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
How epic was that, you guys? I really hope that you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. And I would like to hear, what is the number one thing, idea, experiment, or future goal that you would like to start thinking about? Perhaps because it is the one thing that you would like to say on that veranda in many years to come. Share it in the comments, and hopefully I'll be able to find out what that one thing is. Now, if you would like to receive these videos before anyone else, go to square1.com.au, subscribe to our newsletter, or subscribe right here on YouTube to make sure that you get these episodes before anyone else. Now, I want you to think that the path ahead is the way it needs to be for a reason. Trust the process, and remember that you are the light needed right here and right now. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.